Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Journey Becoming a Head Coach. Again, my name is Coach Freeman, and I'm going to take you through another episode. In this one, we're going to go over staffing. This is one that, as a second year head coach, still working on, still trying to, figure out how my staff works and how it fits with my mindset, my philosophies, and just how it fits with my overall program vision of what I want to do here at the high school. So we're going to go and get started and jump right into it. Who to hire. These are things I'm going to go over. The hardest thing to do: interviews, philosophy, paid versus volunteer, fundraise to pay all your coaches, meetings, turnover, and coaching tree. That's kind of something I'm going to go over. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. So if you do got questions, please put them down there in the comments and let me know if you got any questions on how I've handled interviews, how I've handled staffing, and how I continue to modify and adjust what I'm doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. I'm actually trying to figure out right now if I need to start posting for next year, seeing as how with COVID, we unfortunately over the weekend we were told that we could no longer practice. So right now I'm kind of looking at, okay, well, if they shut us down now, we're supposed to play in January/February. Normally I'm doing interviews right now for my next year's staff. I mean, I usually have posted everything up by November. Helmets have gone out, so it's kind of a funky year. So I'm like, okay, well, do I want to try and just start reaching out and trying to interview guys for the spring? So that's something I'm kind of delving with right now. Probably will go ahead and do it, at least put feelers out there and see what's going on, start hiring guys and get ready for May 1st. That doesn't mean I'm over this season, but the way I look at it as if I put feelers out, and even if they coach January, February with a different school, different area, different whatever, at least I know that I have rollover, I got turnover, I'm prepared going into May and going into the fall of 2021 that will have staff for what we need. So in any case, that's kind of where I'm at as right now, just trying to piece this year together out here in good old Cali. Trying to piece everything together with some of this crazy things going on. Okay, the hardest thing to do for me, and it's something I've dealt with the last 3 years, 4 years really, when I took over as a JV head coach at a local high school in Fair Oaks. I mean, I had to hire and fire a guy within a week, just because I was still going through my teaching training and some other things, and I had to go to some meetings at the previous school that I was at, and I was helping other teachers get their training done, and I had to go to a meeting, and I hired a junior program guy, which we'll get into. Another colleague that I inherited on the program, and I was told that he was going to coach with me. Told me about this guy, interviewed him over the phone 2 times, and said, okay, why don't you come out? He came out. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. And then my offense coordinator calls me as soon as we're done. He goes, dude, you got to fire that guy. And I'm like, oh, what happened? Long story short, there was just conflict between him and the head varsity coach, because at the time we were practicing JV and varsity together, because I had pitched that to the head coach that, hey, we should do that so that way your terminology is our terminology, everything's the same, everything's uniform. So that's what we did. But I guess while I was gone and at my meetings and whatnot, I guess he was just questioning everything the head coach was doing, and I had to call him the next day, but hey, sorry man, can't come back. And we had a nice little conversation for about 30 minutes. But personalities, everyone's going to have different personalities. Some people are going to be more confrontational, more conflictive. Some people are going to be yellers. Some people are going to be motivators. Some guys are going to be X's and O's guys. I kind of find you need a little bit of everything. In this day and age, you really try, at least in my opinion, you try to hold back on the cursing as much as possible, especially at the lower levels. I know some people will probably disagree with me on that. Just because they like the shock value and they think, well, the kids talk like that. But at the same time, we're trying to set an example. That doesn't mean from time to time that I don't slip during a practice or during a game. But when I do curse, it kind of sends a message where they can say, oh, man, he's really upset, or he's really focused, or whatever that is. And again, I'm not condoning it. I'm just merely saying that it does happen. And the thing is, when it does happen, the kids understand that I am looking for something, or I'm just extremely frustrated at what's going on, and it's coming out. And I try to keep that held in as much as I can, just for my own benefit. And plus, again, it looks good to the kids if you're able to relay a message without using negative words, and I view those words as negative. But again, we're all human. We all slip. We all say things. And I try not to use them in a basic conversation with the kids. And to be quite honest with you, I have probably failed on that a little bit. And I've written that down a few times as far as when I'm at practice, just because of everything going on. There's been a lot of negativity, and it's gotten to me a little bit here and there. So I'm gonna make a better adjustment on working on that here moving forward as far as we go into the Christmas holiday. So personalities, do they meld? Do they mesh? Can they mesh? Can they work together? Can they accomplish a common goal that you set out in front of them? Delegation. This is one where last year again, one thing I failed miserably at. I took care of the gear checkout. I took care of the gear check-in. I made sure everything was pumped up. I took care of all the equipment. Didn't delegate anything except for, hey, you guys coach offense, you coach defense, you coach running backs, you coach this, you coach that. That's really the only thing I delegated. I didn't delegate anything else. I didn't delegate cameras, headsets. I tried to take care of all that as a first-year guy, mainly because my thought process was the program I took over was in such disarray as far as organization goes. I didn't know where I wanted anything. So I didn't want to give it to somebody without giving them any direction of where things get stored, how things get labeled, where things get folded. So I was like, I need to do this so that way I can teach somebody where I want things. So this year I'm going to do a lot more delegating. Of course, this year's been kind of weird, but it is what it is. Like last year, I even helped do the JV and the freshman gear handout. This year, I was like, nope, sorry, JV head coach, you're doing all that. And he did, and it was a load off my shoulders. I saw them, they were doing it, they were handing out gear, and we were good to go. So, and then also clearly defining roles. In my opinion, I did an okay job on saying, hey, you're going to coach this, you're going to coach that last year. This year, try to do the same thing. Of course, in previous videos, I've talked about how a lot of my coaching staff just vacated due to other things, not even COVID related, just got other jobs or just didn't agree with where things were going. So, and that's going to happen. Again, the personality thing. Some people, might not agree with what you're doing or might not agree with how you're putting things together. So, and if they're not 100% in, I don't, and me and this individual and a couple others have had those conversations where it's like, hey, if you're not 100% in, then why are you here? So we've had that conversation, but roles, got to make sure those are clearly defined, got to make sure everyone knows what their role and responsibility is. And if they don't, you got to make sure you ask them and make sure you tell them, be like, hey, you're in charge of doing this, and I expect it to be done on these times and these times. And yeah, you're setting expectations, and that's what has to be done. And that's something I'm working forward and working on to make sure that my staff understands that. And by putting out practice plans, putting out weekly notifications, all these things, making sure it's all taken care of, so that way they know what I expect to be done each week. Interviews, how to prepare an interview versus being interviewed. Honestly, you got to go out and do research. What questions do you want to ask? What do you want to know about them other than, the usual easy one, scheme and what have they coached? What haven't they coached? What would they like to coach? Do they know anything about that? Especially if it's something they've never coached before. Obviously, what's their schedule like? Do they work on campus, off campus? What's their usual day look like? How do they fit? Do they want to do freshman, varsity, JV, all that stuff, paid versus volunteer, which we'll get into, and then interview some of your junior program guys. I mean, our JV staff is pretty much like 90% also our junior program. So, and I like that as a transition. I would love to eventually flip it to where that's more of our freshman program, where a lot of our junior coaches are down at the freshman level. Because then as that 8th grade team moves up, then they're like, oh, they get to see some familiar faces. It's not as big of a culture shock coming in June as a freshman and seeing a brand new set of faces. So if I can get some of my junior guys to be my freshman coaches, that would really help out, I feel, with transition and just making the student athletes feel welcome the first time they step on campus because they're seeing familiar faces. But again, preparing an interview, I mean, I've prepared interviews where I had, 30, 40 questions. I've prepared interviews where it's like, hey, you know what, let's just shoot around, let's just shoot the breeze and see what happens and see if we mesh well, and we'll just have a conversation. I've come to find both have their ups and downs. When you shoot the breeze, sometimes it almost seems like, hey, you guys get along so well. It's like, hey, automatically the guy's hired, and then you turn around and you're like, well, here's the problem though. You don't really know this or this. I'm looking for that, and sorry, man, can't hire you. Well, we melded so well. Yeah, we melded so well, but you're not really on board with what we're doing scheme wise or schematically. And I need us to be philosophically on the same page here and scheme wise on the same page to fit our players. So that's kind of that's that mentality. So shoot the breeze works. I mean, I've done it before. And again, I've done it where I have like 30, 40 questions, and I'll even shoot that to them beforehand. That, hey, these are the questions we're going to go over, so that way they have a chance to prepare. It's been done for me. I've been a part of those kinds of interviews as well. The most fun one I ever had, I also attempted to do, and it worked out pretty well. But the one at a local school in Sacramento, I went down to, and literally we were just on the whiteboard for 30, 40 minutes. It was fantastic. I did the same thing up here with another guy. We were talking defensive schemes, and it just worked out really well. It was really nice. And I mean, it was just one of those fun kind of interviews where it's like, okay, well, they're going to run trips, they're going to run tray, they're going to run motion. How are you going to adjust? You cover two, you cover three. How are you going to roll your safety? Are you going to slide? Just fun conversations like that. So, again, how to prepare your interview versus being interviewed. I mean, obviously, you get to determine, you get to set the bar as far as what kind of questions you want to know, and you got to really reflect on what do you want to know. And it's taken me time, and I know my interview skills are still not where they need to be as far as asking the right questions, because I'm sure I'm not. So I'm still piecing that together and changing questions constantly. And I haven't even done interviews in literally like 3 or 4 months, but I started looking at them last week because I started saying to myself, I probably got to start putting out notices and be like, hey, I need to start hiring guys and getting ready for the spring. Because, I mean, we're staring down the barrel of, December 7th, and Christmas is going to be here before I know it, and it's going to be January, and I got to get ready to start going for spring. And, I mean, we haven't even had our season yet. So I got to make sure I get my hiring done before the season starts, because I can only imagine if we have a season that trying to interview guys in January, February, they're going to be in season. I'm going to be in season. So now with all the downtime, I feel like it's the perfect time to start trying to interview and get guys to either commit or at least verbally commit that they want to come over here in May. So, and again, junior program is just a nice, easy way to fill a transition. Philosophy: yes man versus challengers. I mean, if you find guys that, again, you can do that confirmation bias where you hire guys that think like you, act like you, and basically are mini yous, and everything's going to go the way you want it. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that bad is very bad, because if you don't have anyone challenging your opinion or telling you, hey, if you looked at this, then I mean, you're not really opening yourself up to other opinions or other methods of teaching or anything like that. So I've always come to find that, again, I'm a purveyor of conflict and contradiction, as far as trying to find people that are going to try and contradict and conflict and challenge my opinions and my ideas on how to run something. Now, obviously not doing it in a public manner, but when we're in a meeting, go, hey coach, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And I'll be like, well, no, why? Why would I think about doing that? And then they bring it up and we talk it out. Oh, hey, let's talk about implementing that. Or, you know what, I just don't know if we got the kids for that, or I don't know if we got the funds for this. So I mean, just bring that up, but never just shutting coaches out. So I mean, don't just think that you got to be the be all end all. Make sure they know that they have a voice, and make sure that they want to challenge you. Don't just hire a guy that's going to be a yes man that's run the exact same thing you ran and wants to run the exact same thing you run, and not challenge anything or try to progress or learn or get better. So again, yes men are challengers. I've always found, trying to find people that challenge me and will bring up different points of view and whatnot. Now the mentality or morals, I mean, obviously that comes down to another philosophical piece, as far as like, if their mentality is this is just a side hobby, then I'm not in the business of making this a side hobby. I do understand that I do try to say, if they got a really tough schedule, I try to put them down more of at the freshman level, because hey, you know what? If you needed to, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, games are on Thursdays. Fridays you could run film, you can just run them and send them home. It could be a really quick, 1, 2, 3, and they're gone. There's not as much commitment as far as the amount of hours. I mean, really, it's fundamentals. Make sure the kids get reps and make sure they're safe. Fundamentals. Make sure the kids get reps and that they're safe. I mean, really, you're not trying to win, in my opinion, at the freshman level. Of course, everyone tries to win. It's a game. That's the point. But at the same time, at that level, we just want kids safe. We want them to learn. Because you never know what a freshman's going to turn into their junior, senior year. You just don't. And that's why I kind of find it interesting. The more and more I look around, a lot of programs are getting rid of their freshman team, whether due to size or due to coaches. And I'm trying to get my freshman teams out here more and more and more. It's like, no, I don't care. We're a small school, right around 1,000, if not under, usually. And we're trying. I'm always trying. Last year was the first one they had in like 6 years, and the kids loved it. I mean, they played up. They played Division I teams. They played teams they had no business playing with, and they competed really well. We needed more coaches. We only had 2, and one was an alumni, so like fresh out of high school, came out and was trying to coach the defense. So I mean, there was a lot of coaching mistakes, and good players can't outdo bad coaching. And I'm not saying that they were bad coaches or bad people, but at the time, they didn't have the necessary tools to get that team to be and perform where they could have been, because there were teams they should have beat or at least been in contention with. And in the second half, things would kind of fall apart here and there. So again, and that's on me as a head coach too, just sitting back and reflecting. It's like, I didn't give them enough support, so I need to give them more support as far as the coaching staff, so in that way those kids can perform. This year, on the other hand, again, everything's going to boil back to freaking COVID, and that's just the way it is. We have limited numbers. I mean, we've been sitting under the 20s, and so we're seriously debating just saying, hey, I guess we're just gonna have a JV team this year and a varsity team. But I mean, the more and more I keep looking at these this case demic that we're in, and yes, you can burn me for that if you want, but that's the way I view it. I don't know if we're gonna have a season. It's looking more and more like we're not. But like I tell the kids, we got to prepare for it. If you're a gun owner or whatnot, I always kind of tell them, it's kind of like a gun in a bat in an area. You'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. It's a tool. You got to be prepared, and we'd rather be prepared to play than not be prepared to play and get our butts whooped every week. So that's the way I view it. That's the way we've been going at it, and that's what we're going to try and do it. Of course, we're off for 3 weeks, but not really. Trying to get those kids to do things outside of here. Paid versus volunteer. I kind of created a probation period. I want to see how committed people are going to be. So I mean, we go for like a 2-year period where I say, hey, no, sorry, man, we're not going to pay anybody for 2 years, unless of course they're on staff or they have a resume that deems them to obviously get paid, or if the ADs tell me, hey, you know what, you're going to hire this guy, we're going to pay him. And then find out how many stipends you have. Sometimes that number can be skewed. And again, that all depends on, I mean, I've been at schools where the admin tells the coach they've only got like 6 stipends, but then when you look at their salary schedule and you start digging in, they got like 8 or 9. So, and that could be the AD forgot, or that could be the ADs trying to move money around. Who knows what that is without telling you. So just make sure you know how many stipends you actually have, and that should be kind of covered in your interview. You ask them how many stipends you have, what can you do to raise money to get your coaches paid, and things of that nature. So, have them earn it, because again, you don't know. You don't want to just pay a guy you just met and come to find out like he misses 4 or 5 days or 3 days or 2 days, or he's showing up consistently late all the time, and and he tells you he's going to be late, but then he's showing up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that's happened a couple times. That's happened to places I've seen, and it's happened where I'm at. Some people say they're going to be here on time, and then they're texting you at 4 o'clock like, hey man, I ain't going to make it. It's like, okay, cool. Practice started at 3:30. You text me at 4. You ain't going to make it. All right, cool. So. And that boils down in the interview process. Find out what jobs they do on the side, and whether you want to take a gamble or not. I took gambles because a lot of guys were community guys, and I knew the kids enjoy these individuals, and the community knows them. So I was like, okay, well, let's take a gamble on some of these guys and see what'll work. So some guys have worked out, some guys haven't, and some guys have flat out told me, hey, you know what, I just can't make the time commitment, and they left. So again, probation period. Maybe not pay people right out the gate unless you have the ability to, and unless you feel reading their resume and conversations they deserve it, or admin tells you need to pay them. And then how many stipends do you have? Always make sure you know that. And then some guys will just tell you, hey, I just want to be a volunteer. And that's nice. That opens up another stipend for you. I'm looking into trying to create, either get a stipend or make a stipend be for an equipment manager. So that way that person takes care of my cameras, that person takes care of my helmets, all that stuff for the season. I'm looking into doing that. It's just a matter of how many stipends I have and how I can get more, or if I can get more. So, fundraise to pay all your coaches. There's schools I've been at that be a part of this. We don't have that system in yet. I've been asking about it, trying to figure out a way maybe we can do it. There's schools I've been a part of that, there was a football booster club at my old high school where they've raised money and they paid coaches. There was another high school that I coached at where they had an all-inclusive sport booster club, and they fundraised to pay everybody, as many coaches as they could. So, I mean, if that's something that, you can do, I suggest you do it, because, again, I already know for a fact I'm going to lose coaches probably here in the next year or two if I can't afford to pay all of them. And some of them have earned it, and that's kind of the thing. It's like you want to pay them, you want to give them, money for the time that they're committing. I mean, granted, a stipend is not a huge amount of money, and that's what we get paid here in California, is just, a few $1,000 stipend, that's it. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's it. It's like, well, when you think about the man hours, I mean, one year we took a look at it and we averaged it out. We're like, man, it comes out to like 10 cents an hour or 5 cents an hour and 10 cents a day. It was something crazy like that when you actually put in the amount of hours, the amount of days we put in. I mean, they pay you for basically, August to November, December, but in reality, I mean, you get 2 or 3 weeks off in December, and that's it. And you're going back to the drawing board from January to November. And you coaches out there know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't even take that amount of time off. I mean, I don't know if I've ever taken a full week off without looking at something, going to a webinar or calling a head coach or another coach. But hey, man, what are you doing on this? I don't know if I've ever taken a full week off, and that's another thing that I'm working on personally, is like actually getting away and taking a full week off. But again, fundraising to pay all your coaches. If you can, I'd find a way to do it. because I know there's issues with moving money around and things like that. So that's why like booster clubs are a big thing to have, because they can do that. They can say they're fundraising money to pay their coaches and stuff like that. We're working on. I know there's tax issues with if a school tried to do that. So that is what it is. But if you have the ability to fundraise and pay your coaches, again, I would do it. It would keep them there. And again, it offers another thing of accountability, and it attracts more serious candidates, in my opinion. Because if you're able to pay them, okay, well, I put in all my time and my effort. I want to go somewhere where I'm going to get paid. If you have a choice to go somewhere you get paid versus not getting paid, and you have 8, 9, 10 years of experience, you're going to go somewhere that's going to pay you versus that's going to say, hey, we're going to fundraise to pay you. So just thoughts on that. Expectations of meetings, delegate. Again, we talked about that earlier. Delegate during your meetings, delegate before, during, and after your meetings. Make sure everyone knows. Set expectations. Let them know what their rules are during those meetings. What are we talking about? What's the meeting for? What's the agenda? Send the agenda out early. I've always sent the agenda out either a day or two before, or I think the latest I've sent it out is like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. But hey, here's our agenda for today. Contact me if you want to add anything or change anything. And that's just kind of how I've handled it. And the expectation is we're going to try and stay on point as much as we can. We're going to point out things we need to do. We're going to get those things taken care of. And then we're going to, if someone's got an issue with it, we can revamp, we can talk about it, or be like, hey, everyone sit on it for 24 hours and then think about the answer when we come back. So, we have a couple different styles of meetings. We might talk about a scheme for a day and be, all right, everyone sit on it and then come back and, hey, is this something we really want to do? Or we might be like, okay, we need to make this decision now. It could be, a change in personnel. It could be a change in, some kind of time management. It could be a change in practice, whether varsity and JV are practicing or JV and freshmen are practicing. We made that switch a couple times this year just because of basically management concerns with the amount of coaches we had at the time. So we made those adjustments a couple times. So again, setting expectations, delegating, making sure everything gets taken care of, and everyone's on the same page. So then that way those meetings go by fluid and everyone knows what's going on. Turnover. This one hit me hard this year. So for those of you that have seen some of the other videos, this one hit me real hard. We had up to 7 coaches on our varsity staff at one point. Going back from last year where we only had 4. Really only 3. Because like I said, I did not coach anything. I really tried to just manage the game and make sure everything got taken care of on the outside so my coaches could coach. So this year, had guys leaving for new jobs. We had 2 or 3 guys leave from the JV, and like I said, I had that mass exodus of 4 coaches that left from the varsity. And again, I'm all proponent of leaving for new jobs. My head coach pushed that when I worked under him at Castle Roble for years. He's like, if you get a job, if you get a teaching job, I'm kicking you off the squad. You need to go. Your career is teaching. You can coach anywhere. So always trying to promote that at your program. Hey, you know what? We're going to teach you skills that you need to coach anywhere, and but you need to take care of your career, and you need to do what's best for you and your family. And that's kind of what I've always felt. I feel like I promote it. I probably need to say it more, but I do feel like I promote it in my actions and the way I talk. So, but I might need to actually verbalize that a little bit more as far as, hey man, if you need to do what's best for you and your family, do it. You need to go somewhere for your career, do it. And if I can help you, I will. So leaving for new jobs, it's going to happen. Some people leaving, it's going to happen. Again, I told you that story about firing. I don't have an issue with firing somebody. Again, I believe that sometimes it's warranted and sometimes it's a necessity, and you have to set the tone and be like, hey, no, this is the way we do things. This is the way we handle business. And if you're not going to do it, get out, go find somewhere else that will do it your way. Again, you are what you tolerate. And if you tolerate certain things, and that's what your program is going to be known for. And that's one thing here that I'm trying to avoid and try to make sure I change, because there's been a lot of things that have been tolerated here for years. And there's a certain saying that I'm trying to eliminate, and it just promotes mediocrity. It's like, oh, that's just the way it's always been here. It's like, no, that's a loser mentality. That's a mediocre mentality. That's accepting, that's tolerating mediocrity, and that's not what we're about. You can change it. You have the ability to change it. So leaving for new jobs, promote it. It's going to happen. It just so happened, like I said, 4 guys left at the same time, and 2 other guys left at the JV level, and it just kind of hit us hard. And that's why I said we had to do a lot of shuffle. But promote turnover. Turnover is good. And just make sure that you're promoting them and not having to fire them. Like I said, I haven't had to fire anybody from here yet. Knock on wood, who knows? Maybe this will be the first year I got to do it. But I've had to fire people in the past, volunteer and paid. And don't think, yes, a volunteer can be fired. Just because they say they're a volunteer, you can't fire me. That's not the case. So again, leaving for new jobs, promote it, help them out when you can, if you can, and just expect it. Expect 2 to 3 guys to leave every year. And that's what I kind of planned for and expected, and I thought I had that hired back up, but luckily, then you know what? You just had that turnover of 6, and that's just what happened. So, and again, at some point in time, you can get mad about it, you can get frustrated about it. I chose not to, and I just chose to, hey, all right, I got a new problem. All right, I only got like 11, I only got, at that point, I had like 9 total coaches. I'm like, okay, how am I going to solve this problem? So here we go. You can get mad, you can get frustrated on your own time, but in the matter of fact, to me, what a head coach's job is problem solve. You get a problem, here's your options, any variables, try to pick the best one and execute it. That's basically what it boils down to. And that's the same thing in anything, even with turnover. Coaches are going to leave. You got to expect it. You got to plan for it and then be ready for it. Coaching tree, like I said, again, this goes to, putting your name on things and letting guys leave. Putting your name on it, building a reputation, building a coaching tree. Guys that want to be coaches. Again, this is kind of why I created this series. Going back and looking, like no one really has a series like this. I've seen a couple guys where they make like a 2-part, video about, hey, this is what I did, this is how you do this. And they just cover the very beginning and like how you got it. They don't cover the journey, and that's kind of what I want everyone to kind of see. Like, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm doing. This is how I view things, and it might change, but again, just putting it out there for anyone that wants to see it, wants to understand it, maybe who's interested in being a head coach. I want to build, to me personally, I want to build a coaching tree. I want to be like some of the coaches you've seen on these slides that have several names for the offensive coordinators and head coaches that have gone off and been successful. Some have, some haven't. I mean, again, it takes a certain kind of person to be a head coach. I might find out in a couple of years I'm not a head coach. I'm a D coordinator. I'm an OC, or hell, I'm just an offensive defensive line coach. That's where I need to stay. We'll find out. The jury's still out on that. So, again, but if I have the ability to, I want to build a coaching tree. I want to mentor young coaches that want to become, OCs, DCs, special teams guys, that want to be offensive, defensive line coaches, that want to be head coaches. I want to mentor those guys and let them see, the good things I do and the mistakes I do. So in that way, they can then make the decision and be like, okay, well, I liked what he did here, but, he really screwed up here. But if he did this, I think it will work. So, again, just throwing everything out there, saying, hey, this is how I did it, and go from there. And then building a rep, putting your name on somebody. I mean, I know, people probably take risks on that. I put my names on a couple guys. Sometimes it works, sometimes I don't. And sometimes, you think this coach or this guy's going to do really well and end up flubbing out. It's kind of the same thing with recruiting. You're trying to get a kid recruited, and, they're doing all the right things for you, and they're doing all the right things, and you're telling them, hey, yeah, no, this kid's going to be great, this kid's going to be great, he's going to get out there, and all of a sudden, something happens, whether mentally or physically, and they just quit, and then they're done. So, and that can happen, and it has happened to me with guys I've put out there. They'll say, yeah, no, this kid's going to be really good for your program, and, they said the kid's a nice kid, but then they just, we don't know what happened. He just decided they didn't want to play no more, and that's going to happen. So, again, being wary of where you put your name, building that rep of being a mentor, and wanting to have, coaches leave and go on and do other things and be coaches elsewhere, become defensive coordinators, move up the ladder, become head coaches, and just building that tree. That's something that I aspire, that I want to do. Again, I'm nowhere near that. I've only helped kids get recruited. I haven't had any coaches leave and go on and do something else. I haven't mentored a coach yet to become a DC and OC, but that's something that I look forward to doing. And then I feel like as any coach, that's something they should aspire to want to do, as far as, promoting, other coaches, getting more opinions out there, getting fresh ideas out there. So that's my kind of idea on staffing, as far as interviews, being paid, fundraising, all that stuff. Again, if you're enjoying this series, click below, subscribe to it. Again, I don't really do anything else with this as far as trying to, make money off of it. It really doesn't bother me. I'm just sharing information. So, again, subscribe, leave some comments. Again, if there's something you want me to go over. And, again, this one's going to be posted this week. And then Thursday, we're going to go over some punt. We're going to go over our shield punt with some, of course, some fakes in it. I got to have the fakes in there. So, we're going to go over that. Again, be great, push limits, hold the line. Thank you so very much. Have a